Jake sat near the window of the small shuttle as it cut through the glowing clouds of Elora 9. The world below him shimmered like liquid glass, full of floating islands and crystal forests that reflected the twin suns. He was a human engineer working in an alien research outpost, and life had been quiet until he met Sarai. She was different from anyone he had ever known. Her skin had a soft teal glow. Her hair flowed like silver light, and her fox-like ears twitched whenever she was happy or shy. For months she had been his guide, his friend, and soon, something more. Now she had asked him to do something no other human had done before. She wanted him to meet her family. Jake had smiled when she asked, but now, as the shuttle entered a region of glowing storms, his stomach twisted with nervous energy. Sarai sat beside him, calm and graceful as always. Her hands glowed faintly on her lap, a sign that she was excited too. "Don't worry," she said softly. "They will see what I see in you." Jake tried to laugh. "I hope that's a good thing." She smiled and looked out the window. "It is. My people value honesty and courage. You have both." The words comforted him, but only for a moment. The world outside seemed to change the deeper they flew. The air shimmered with living light, and the gravity pulsed like a heartbeat. Sometimes Jake thought he saw shapes moving through the clouds, large and graceful, as if the sky itself had life. He tried not to stare. When the shuttle reached the edge of the horizon, a floating island appeared, a city of white stone and golden light. The buildings were carved into towers that looked like wings rising toward the stars. Bridges made of pure energy connected them, and at the center stood a great citadel that glowed like a sun. Sarai's expression changed when she saw it. Pride mixed with fear. "That's my home," she said quietly. Jake nodded, speechless. No human had ever been allowed this deep into Eloran territory. He had only seen cities like this in ancient scans and drawings. Now he was about to walk through one, not as a visitor but as Sarai's guest, her chosen one. The shuttle landed on a soft blue platform. The air outside was cool and carried a scent like rain mixed with flowers. Strange birds with glass wings flew overhead, singing in tones that sounded like music. Jake followed Sarai down the ramp. His boots touched the glowing floor, and it rippled faintly like light responding to his steps. 2 tall guards met them. Their armor looked alive, made of shifting crystal plates. When Sarai spoke to them in her native language, they stepped aside, but their eyes never left Jake. He could feel the weight of their gaze, the curiosity, the disbelief. Humans were still seen as myths to many of her kind. They walked through long halls that shimmered like starlight. Every wall was covered with patterns that changed when he looked at them, telling stories of wars, peace, and unity between worlds. Sarai glanced at him once, sensing his unease. "They will not harm you," she said gently. "My family may test you, but they will listen." Jake gave a small nod. "I just want to make a good impression." Sarai's lips curved into a soft smile. "Then just be yourself." When they reached the heart of the citadel, the doors opened to reveal a vast chamber. At its center stood a tall woman with silver eyes and long flowing robes that shimmered with threads of light. Her presence filled the room like calm thunder. This was High Matron Elira, Sarai's mother. Around her stood several younger Elorans, Sarai's siblings, each with the same glowing skin and fox-like features, though none smiled as warmly. Elira stepped forward, her gaze fixed on Jake. "So, this is the human," she said in perfect galactic common. Her voice was deep and smooth. "You carry the scent of an old star." Jake bowed slightly, unsure of what to say. "It's an honor to meet you, High Matron." Her eyes narrowed slightly, studying him as if reading more than his words. After a pause, she extended her hand. When Jake hesitated, Sarai gave a tiny nod. He touched the matron's hand. It was warm, too warm, and a faint golden shimmer passed between their palms. Elira's expression changed in that instant. Surprise, then confusion. She withdrew her hand quickly. The room grew silent. "Interesting," she murmured. "You are not what I expected." Before Jake could ask what she meant, she turned to Sarai. "Come with me, daughter." "We must speak," Sarai frowned. "Mother, it is important," Elira said, her tone firm. Then she walked away, her robes trailing light behind her. The siblings whispered among themselves, their eyes fixed on Jake like he was something rare and dangerous. Sarai turned back to him, her calm face now hiding worry. "Please wait here. Don't speak to anyone. I'll be back soon." Jake nodded, trying to hide his unease. As she left, he looked around the great chamber. Everything seemed alive, the walls pulsing faintly, the air humming with unseen energy. He felt like an intruder in a dream. Minutes passed. He wandered toward a window that opened onto the sea below. The horizon glowed faintly gold where the suns were setting. He could see shapes moving far beneath the waves, huge luminous creatures that looked almost like whales of light. Jake pressed his hand against the window and whispered to himself, "I hope this was a good idea." Behind him, soft footsteps echoed. One of Sarai's younger siblings, a child with bright eyes, stood watching him. "Are you really human?" the child asked curiously. Jake smiled faintly. "I think so." The child grinned, showing small crystal-like teeth. "Mother says humans are gone. But maybe she tried to rest, but strange dreams had filled his sleep. Dreams of glowing figures walking through fire, of stars falling from the sky, and a golden light pulsing from his own chest. When he awoke, he wasn't sure if it was just a dream or something real. A soft chime sounded and the door opened. Sarai entered, her eyes tired but full of relief when she saw him awake. "You didn't sleep well," she said gently. He smiled faintly. "I could say the same about you." She walked closer and took his hand. Her fingers were cool and soft. "Mother spoke to me for hours. She wanted to understand you, your world, your people, everything." Jake looked down at their joined hands. "And what did she say?" Sarai hesitated. "She is unsure. She felt something when she touched you, something impossible. She said your energy carries a resonance that should not exist." Jake frowned. "Energy?" "She means your soul light," Sarai explained. "Every living being on Elora has a visible aura. It shows our nature and lineage. But humans were said to have none. That is why we thought your kind could not bond with our world. Yet when she touched you, she saw a golden light. Only those of the ancient bloodlines carry such energy." Jake didn't understand everything, but he could see it troubled her. "Is that bad?" Sarai shook her head. "It is not bad. It is strange." To her, strange means dangerous. They stood in silence for a moment, listening to the waves below. Then Sarai looked up with determination. "Come, she has agreed to meet you again. But this time the whole family will be there." Jake nodded, trying to hide his nerves. Together they walked through the shining halls. The guards bowed as Sarai passed, though their eyes followed Jake with curiosity and quiet suspicion. The halls opened into a vast courtyard where fountains of light danced in the air, and large crystal trees grew, humming faintly as if alive. Sarai's family was waiting there. Her siblings stood in a circle, 4 of them, each dressed in flowing garments that shimmered with different colors. Her mother sat on a raised seat carved from white stone, her expression unreadable. When Jake entered, all conversation stopped. Elira's gaze was steady and calm. "Human," she said softly. "You have crossed a bridge that none before you have crossed. You have entered the home of the Idric line. Do you know what that means?" Jake glanced at Sarai, then nodded slowly. "I only know that I was invited by Sarai, and I'm honored to be here." Elira's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Honor is good, but understanding is better. You walk among beings whose duty is to protect the balance between light and void. Our power is not from weapons or blood, but from harmony. You, human, are something that has not existed here for 10,000 cycles." Jake tried to speak, but she raised a hand. "Your presence disturbs the energy of this place. I do not say this with anger. I say it with wonder." One of Sarai's brothers stepped forward. His name was Kale. He was tall, his eyes bright blue like lightning. "Mother, we should not let this outsider stay. The last time our kind mixed with off-worlders, we nearly lost everything." Sarai glared at him. "He's not an outsider. He saved lives at the colony outpost. He risked his own safety for others." Kale crossed his arms. "That does not make him one of us." Elira's voice remained calm. "Enough." Then she turned back to Jake. "Tell me, human, why do you love my daughter?" The question struck him like a shock. Everyone stared at him. Jake took a slow breath. "Because she's kind. Because she listens when no one else does. Because she makes the world feel like home, even when it's full of strange skies. I don't know if that's enough for you, but it's enough for me." Silence filled the courtyard. Even Kale lowered his eyes for a moment. Elira studied him, her silver gaze softening slightly. "There is honesty in you," she said at last. "That I cannot deny." Before Jake could relax, a strange vibration passed through the air. The fountains flicked, arid, and the light trees dimmed. Elira's expression changed. The balance stirs, she whispered. Your presence awakens echoes I have not felt since the War of the Breach. Kyle stepped closer. Mother, it's him. He brings old power, Elira stood. Perhaps, or perhaps fate has brought him for a reason. She walked to Jake, her robe trailing light. When she reached him, she placed her hand over his chest. A pulse of golden light burst from beneath her palm, spreading across the courtyard. The Ailerons gasped. The golden light reflected in every surface, filling the air with a soft hum. Elira stepped back, her voice quiet but full of awe. It is true. The human carries the spark. Sarai looked confused. The spark? The spark of the covenant, Elira said. The bond that once joined our people to the stars. We believed it lost when humanity vanished from the skies. Jake looked down at his hands, still glowing faintly. He didn't know what to say. Elira turned to her children. Prepare the chamber of resonance. If the spark has truly returned, then the old test must be done. Kale looked uncertain. You mean the trial? For him? Yes, Elira said firmly. If he is to remain with us, he must prove his spirit worthy of the light he carries. Sarai's hand tightened around Jake's. Her eyes met his, full of fear and hope mixed together. I will stand with you, she whispered. Jake didn't understand what the trial meant, but he saw no fear in Sarai's eyes. And because she believed in him, he found the courage to believe in himself, or it only reveals. Jake forced a smile. Reveals what? Our truth, she said, looking at him with her bright silver eyes. What lives inside your heart? The chamber sees who you really are. It can show pain or kindness or strength. It never lies. That didn't make Jake feel much better, but he nodded. He could feel her hand trembling slightly, even though she tried to hide it. He knew she was worried, too. The doors opened and High Matron Elira appeared. Her presence filled the corridor with calm light. The chamber is ready, she said. Come forward, human. Jake walked beside her, feeling every step echo under his boots. The hall beyond was enormous, surrounded by floating mirrors that glowed with faint energy. In the center stood a circle made of golden light, humming softly like the beat of a heart. Elira looked at him. Step into the circle. Do not resist what you see. The chamber will speak to you in the language of memory. Sarai tried to follow, but Elira lifted a hand. He must face this alone. Sarai's lips parted as if to protest, but she stayed silent. She gave Jake one last look, full of silent faith. He nodded to her, then stepped into the light. The golden glow rose around him and the room vanished. Jake opened his eyes to find himself standing in a desert. The sky was dark red, the air dry and full of dust. He looked around and realized it was not Elora, it was Earth, or what was left of it. Crumbled cities, burned fields, and broken machines stretched as far as he could see. It was his memory, a time long ago before he left Earth for the colonies. A voice spoke behind him. You left them. He turned and saw a shadow shaped like himself, wearing the same uniform he once wore during the colony wars. The shadow's eyes glowed gold. I didn't leave them, Jake said quietly. They were gone. I couldn't save them. The shadow stepped closer. You survived when others didn't. You ran when the sky fell. Jake felt pain twist in his chest. I didn't run. I tried to save who I could. I wasn't strong enough. The ground cracked beneath them. Flames rose, turning the ruins into fire. The shadow vanished and another figure appeared. A young woman, human, wearing a broken pilot suit. It was his friend Maria, the one he lost during the last battle. Jake, she said softly, her voice trembling. Why did you survive? He felt his knees weaken. Because someone had to. Someone had to remember. She reached out and touched his hand. Then remember what it means to be human. Her form faded into golden dust that swirled around him. The fire vanished, replaced by calm water stretching to infinity. The reflection in the water showed not him but Sarai. Her eyes were full of light and sadness. Would you still love me? Her voice whispered. If my world turned against you. Jake didn't hesitate. Yes. Because you never turned against me. The water rippled and the reflection smiled before fading into golden mist. Then everything went dark again. Jake found himself standing in front of a great door. It glowed faintly with strange symbols, and he could hear faint whispers from beyond it. His body felt heavy, like the air itself was pushing him back. He took a slow breath. You want to know what I am, he said aloud. I'm not a soldier anymore. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone trying to hold on to what's good. He reached for the door. The golden symbols flared brighter, and when he touched them, they turned into light. The door opened. A wave of warmth flowed through him. The darkness vanished, and the chamber of resonance returned. He was on his knees, glowing faintly with golden energy. Elira and the others watched silently. Sarai rushed to him, kneeling beside him with tears in her eyes. "Jake," she said, holding his face. "You're all right." He smiled weakly. "I think so. That was strange." Elira stepped forward, her face calm but full of deep wonder. "You faced the shadows of your past and did not break. The chamber has judged you." Jake looked up at her, confused. "Judged me for what?" "For being true," Elira said softly. "For carrying the light of your people. The chamber shows no falsehood. It has shown me what you are, a man whose soul carries warmth even in darkness." Sarai helped him stand. "So he passed?" Elira nodded slowly. "Yes, and more than that. The light within him is not only human. It resonates with our own energy. The legends spoke of this, the joining of two lost lights. The covenant spark has awakened." Kale, who had been silent until now, frowned. "If that is true, then he is a link between our worlds." Elira turned to him. "Yes, and such a link must be protected." Jake didn't fully understand what they meant, but when he looked into Sarai's eyes, he saw pride and relief. She took his hand again, and for the first time since arriving, he felt like the Citadel's light no longer we, she said, sitting beside him. Jake smiled faintly, just trying to make sense of everything. "That chamber, it showed me things from my past, people I lost, and yet it made me feel calm." Sarai leaned closer. "The chamber of resonance sees truth. It showed you pain because it needed to test your strength. Only those who carry pure hearts come out with light still in them." "You did?" He looked at her, his expression soft. "Do you believe what your mother said about this spark?" Sarai hesitated. "I do. The covenant spark was a legend among our kind. It said that long ago, when humans and Yolorans fought side by side, their energies joined and created a bridge between worlds. That bridge was destroyed when your people disappeared from the stars. But the spark, the connection, was never meant to die completely. Maybe it survived in you." Jake tried to laugh, though it came out nervous. "You make it sound like I'm some kind of chosen one." Sarai smiled gently. "Maybe you are not chosen. Maybe you are simply meant." Before he could answer, a deep tremor shook the balcony. The floor pulsed with a dull light, and distant alarms echoed through the air. Sarai jumped to her feet. "That sound? It's the Citadel's defense alarm." They rushed inside. The corridors were suddenly filled with flashing lights and running guards. Kale appeared from the opposite hall, his face tense. "The barrier field is collapsing. Something is breaking through the atmosphere." Elira's voice echoed through the hall as she appeared, her robes glowing brighter than before. "Gather at the central court," she commanded. "The old enemy returns." Jake followed them, his mind racing. When they reached the open courtyard, he looked up at the sky and froze. Above the citadel, a tear had opened in the clouds. It wasn't a storm. It was a rift, twisting the air like broken glass. From it poured dark shapes made of smoke and metal, wraiths just as Sarai had described in stories. Ancient creatures of void energy, the same beings her ancestors once sealed away. Kale shouted orders to the guards. Energy spears lit the air as bolts of blue fire shot toward the sky. But for every wraith destroyed, 2 more appeared. Their bodies shimmered like shadows with burning red eyes. Elira raised her hands, summoning a dome of silver light that shielded the courtyard. "They found us," she said grimly. "The rift senses the spark's return." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "They came because of me." Elira didn't answer, but her eyes said enough. The ground shook again as a wraith struck the barrier. The shield rippled, cracking at the edges. Kale drew his energy blade, his face full of fierce determination. "We can't hold this forever." Sarai turned to Jake. "Stay back." But Jake didn't listen. He saw a fallen guard beside the gate, his weapon lying nearby. Instinct took over. He grabbed the plasma rifle and ran to the edge of the courtyard. When a wraith tried to break through, he aimed and fired. The weapon kicked hard, sending a burst of golden blue energy into the creature. It screamed and vanished into smoke. Kyle saw it happen and froze in disbelief. "His weapon, how did he do that?" Elira looked toward Jake, her voice sharp. "The spark inside him reacts with our energy. His light is feeding the weapons." Sarai's heart pounded as she rushed to his side. "Jake, be careful." He nodded, his focus sharp. The rifle felt almost alive in his hands. Every time he pulled the trigger, the shots glowed brighter, forming patterns that looked almost like symbols of light. The air buzzed with energy. The Eloran guards began to fight beside him, their fear turning into awe. Still, the wraiths kept coming. The sky above was black with their shadows. The citadel trembled as one massive creature emerged from the rift, a giant made of dark energy, its body burning with red cracks. Illyra's face turned pale. That is the Hollow King, the first of their kind. Kyle shouted, "If it reaches the core, everything will fall." Jake looked up at the creature and tightened his grip on the rifle. "Then we stop it here." He ran forward, aiming for the nearest tower where the creature's energy beam was charging. Sarai called after him, but he didn't turn back. The tower shook as he climbed the stairs 2 at a time. When he reached the top, the air was thick with smoke and static. The creature's face loomed above, its eyes like burning stars. Jake aimed carefully and fired 3 times into its chest. The light exploded outward, forcing the creature to stagger. But then it roared, sending a shockwave that threw him backward. He hit the floor hard, gasping for breath. The rifle slid out of reach. The Hollow King raised its arm to strike, but a sudden beam of silver light shot from below. Illyra and Sarai stood together in the courtyard, their combined energy forming a massive shield. Kale leaped into the air with his blade, slicing through one of the creature's limbs. Jake pushed himself up, his body aching. He reached for the fallen weapon again, but this time, the golden light from his chest spread across his hands. The rifle glowed even brighter, humming like it recognized him. He fired once more. This time the blast tore straight through the Hollow King's chest. The creature screamed, collapsing into smoke that scattered into the wind. The rift above flickered but didn't close. The citadel steadied itself, the alarms fading slowly into silence. When it was over, Jake stood shaking, his heart pounding. Sarai ran to him, wrapping her arms around him tightly. "You're insane," she whispered, "but brave." Illyra walked toward them, her silver eyes soft with respect. "You fought as one of us, human. Perhaps the spark was not a curse after all." Jake smiled faintly, still catching his breath. Let's just hope that was the last of them. But as he looked at the sky, he saw faint red lines still pulsing across the clouds. The battle was not over, it was only beginning. The citadel was quiet again, but it was not peace. The air still carried the echo of battle. Shattered crystals and pieces of armor lay scattered across the shining floor. The silver walls, once glowing, now flickered weakly like a dying light. Jake stood near the broken gate, his clothes burned and covered in dust. His hands still shook from the energy he had released through the rifle. Sarai stood beside him, holding a soft light orb to heal a burn on his arm. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed worry. "You should rest," she said softly. "You pushed yourself too far." Jake shook his head. "If those things come back, I can't rest. We have to be ready." Kale walked toward them, his armor cracked but his stance strong. "You fight like no human I've ever heard of," he said. "Even our energy weapons answered to you." Jake looked at him tiredly. "Maybe it wasn't me. Maybe it was the spark your mother talked about." Kyle studied him for a moment and then nodded slowly. "Whatever it is, it saved us. But the rift is not gone. Something worse may follow." Illyra joined them then, her robes dim but her eyes sharp as stars. "He is right. The Hollow King was only the beginning. The rift remains open because the seal has been broken. The spark within you awakened the energy that both protects and draws them." Jake frowned. "So you're saying they came because of me?" Illyra didn't deny it. "Your presence reawakened the Covenant light. To the Wraiths, that light is both a threat and a source of power. They will keep coming until the seal is complete again." Sarai looked at her mother, her voice trembling. "Then how do we seal it?" "The rift can only be closed by the one who carries the spark," Illyra said slowly. "But the process will drain all life from whoever performs it." The silence that followed felt heavy. Jake looked down, his chest tightening. "You mean, it will kill me?" Illyra met his eyes calmly. "Yes, the energy of the rift must be balanced by a life source. That source must be human, bound to the spark." Sarai stepped forward immediately. "No, there has to be another way." "There is not," Illyra said firmly. "The last time this ritual was performed, it took the lives of thousands of warriors. It cannot be faked or shared." Jake stood still, the weight of her words sinking in. Around them, the citadel groaned under the strain of damaged engines and weakening shields. Far above, the sky still pulsed with faint red cracks. The rift was alive, waiting. Sarai grabbed his hand tightly. "You can't do it," she whispered. "Not after all this. I won't let you." Jake looked at her, his voice calm. "If I don't, everyone here dies. You, your family, your world. What choice do I have?" She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "There must be another path." "There must be." Illyra turned away, her voice low. "Sometimes destiny offers no second door. Only courage." Kale clenched his fists. "If he truly means to face it, then he deserves our strength. I will guard the path to the rift until it is done." Jake gave a small smile. "I appreciate that. But this isn't about me being a hero. It's about finishing what started long before I was born." As the night deepened, the family gathered in the great hall. The air glowed faintly blue from the healing crystals. Illyra began preparing the ritual circle, lines of light drawn across the floor that pulsed like living veins. She placed a glowing crystal core in the center, humming softly in an ancient language. Sarai stood beside Jake, refusing to leave his side. She pressed a small pendant into his hand, a piece of her home shaped like a drop of frozen light. "Keep this with you," she said. "It will remind you that someone is waiting." Jake looked at her, his throat tight. "You've given me more than I ever expected, Sarai. You gave me a reason to believe again." Before he could say more, the citadel shook violently. Alarms flared again as cracks opened in the sky above. The rift was widening. Red lightning tore through the clouds and strange whispers filled the air. Illyra's voice rose over the noise. "It's starting. Go to the core." They ran through the glowing halls as the walls trembled. The rift's light poured through the open domes, painting everything crimson. When they reached the heart of the citadel, the great portal pulsed like a wound in space. Its edges shimmered with energy and dark shapes moved within. Illyra raised her staff, her voice steady. "Step into the circle, human." Jake obeyed, standing in the golden ring. The moment he did, the spark within his chest flared like fire. The light spread from his heart, weaving into the air and touching the portal. Sarai rushed to him, grabbing his arm. "No, you don't have to do this alone." Jake looked at her with soft eyes. "If I don't, there won't be anything left for either of us. I promised you I'd protect your world. Let me keep that promise." Sarai held his face, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Then I'll wait for you," she whispered. "No matter how long it takes." Jake smiled faintly. "You always say that like you mean it." "I do," she said, her voice breaking. Illyra raised her hand. "Now!" Jake turned toward the rift. The golden light around him brightened until it became blinding. The floor shook as energy surged through the citadel. Kale and the guards formed a shield barrier to hold back the incoming wraiths. The air exploded with sound and color. Jake felt the energy pull at his very soul, stretching him between two worlds. He gritted his teeth and pushed harder, focusing on Sarai's face. The golden light from his chest poured into the rift, sealing it inch by inch. Sarai screamed his name as the light swallowed him completely. Then suddenly everything went silent. The red cracks vanished. The sky turned clear. The rift was gone. The citadel stopped shaking, its engines returning to calm hums. Illyra looked up at the now peaceful sky and whispered, "The seal is restored." Behind her, footsteps approached. It was her brother Kale, his armor repaired and his expression calm. But even he looked different now, quieter, humbled. "The rift is gone," he said quietly. "Mother says the seal is complete again. The world is safe." Sarai didn't turn. "Safe doesn't mean whole," she said. Kale sighed. "He gave everything to protect us. That's more than most would do for strangers." Sarai closed her eyes. "He was never a stranger." Kale looked out at the glowing sea. "I was wrong about him," he admitted. "I saw a human and thought of weakness, but he carried more strength than anyone I've ever met." Sarai smiled faintly. "That's what made him human. He didn't fight for glory. He fought because he couldn't stand to see others fall." A soft hum filled the air. The citadel's central tower began to glow again, slowly, steadily, like a heartbeat returning to life. Illyra's voice echoed through the halls. "The Covenant light has awakened. Come to the core chamber." Sarai's heart skipped. She looked at Kale, who nodded. Together they ran through the shining corridors, their steps echoing off the walls. When they reached the chamber, Illyra was standing before the great crystal that powered the citadel. Its color had changed. It no longer shone silver but gold, the same color as Jake's light. Sarai's breath caught. "Mother, what is that?" Illyra turned to her, her face calm but glowing softly in the golden reflection. When the rift closed, the energy did not vanish. It returned here to the heart of Elora. And within that energy, I can feel him. Sarai stepped closer. You mean Jake? Yes, Elira said gently. His body is gone, but his essence merged with the Covenant light. He became part of it. The seal did not take him away, it made him eternal. Sarai reached out and touched the crystal's surface. It was warm, and when she closed her eyes, she heard a faint whisper. A familiar voice, gentle and steady. I told you I'd protect your world. Her breath trembled and tears filled her eyes. Jake, she whispered. You're still here. Kale stared in disbelief. He's alive inside it? Elira nodded. Not as flesh and bone, but as energy. His spirit and the Covenant spark have become one. He will watch over us now. The Citadel's light brightened, filling every corner with warmth. The broken halls repaired themselves as if healed by invisible hands. Outside, the sea shimmered brighter than ever, and far above, the skies cleared completely for the first time in centuries. Elora was whole again. Days passed, and the Citadel slowly returned to its rhythm. The people sang songs of the human who saved their world. Statues of gold and crystal were built in his honor, a figure with kind eyes holding a glowing rifle pointed toward the sky. Sarai visited the core chamber every morning. She would sit beside the golden crystal and speak softly, telling him stories of her people and how things were changing. She told him about the children playing in the streets again, about the light birds returning to sing at dawn, about how even Kale smiled now and then. Each time she spoke, the crystal pulsed faintly as if it was listening. One morning, Elira entered quietly, watching her daughter from afar. He can hear you, she said softly. Sarai turned. I know. Sometimes I can feel his presence. When the wind moves, when the light warms my face, it feels like him. Elira smiled gently. He is the bridge between our worlds now. His sacrifice renewed the bond that was lost. And through him, we will never forget what humans truly were. Sarai looked up at the crystal again, her expression full of both love and sadness. He said once that he wasn't a hero, but he became one anyway. Elira stepped closer and placed a hand on her shoulder. He became more than a hero. He became hope. The two stood there in silence, the golden light surrounding them like a soft embrace. That night, Sarai couldn't sleep. She returned once more to the balcony where it had all begun. The stars above seemed closer now, and the moonlight painted the sea in shimmering gold. She held the pendant tightly, feeling its gentle pulse. Then, for just a moment, she saw him. A figure made of golden light appeared at the edge of the balcony. Jake stood there, his familiar smile calm and warm. He didn't speak, but his eyes said everything. Sarai stepped forward, tears shining in her eyes. You kept your promise, she whispered. The golden figure nodded once. A soft wind blew through the balcony, carrying warmth with it. The pendant in her hand glowed brighter, matching the rhythm of his light. Then slowly he faded into the air, his form turning into a wave of golden dust that drifted toward the sea. The breeze whispered his voice one last time. You're safe now. Sarai closed her eyes and let the wind carry her tears away. The pendant's light settled into a steady glow, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. From that night on, she no longer felt alone. Wherever she went, the warmth of the Covenant light followed her. The world of Elora had been saved not just by strength, but by love and faith between two souls. For every dawn, she walked the same path across the upper garden, where crystal flowers bloomed under soft light. She always stopped by the edge of the golden sea, where the wind carried faint echoes of the past. She still wore the pendant Jake had given her, and every time it glowed faintly, she smiled through the ache in her chest. Kale often found her there. He had changed too. The proud warrior who once doubted humans now carried a calm strength, more thoughtful than before. One morning he approached her, carrying a small sphere of blue light. The council meets today, he said. They want you there. Sarai looked at the horizon. To speak of the Covenant? Yes, Kale said, nodding. The energy you and Jake awakened continues to spread through our world. New life grows in places that were barren for centuries. The council believes the Covenant spark can guide us toward something greater. Sarai turned to him, her expression gentle. Jake's light is still working through us. His gift hasn't faded, Kyle smiled faintly. You sound like Mother. She says the human spirit has joined our own, that his heart still beats in the pulse of this world. Sarai touched her pendant. It does. I can feel him in the light, in the sea, even in the quiet. Later that day, they entered the Hall of Unity where the council gathered. The room was vast, surrounded by floating crystals that shone like stars. High Matron Elira stood at the center, her robes glowing gold instead of silver now. Her power had changed too. She greeted them with a calm smile. "Daughter," she said warmly, "the council has decided. The Covenant light will not remain hidden within this citadel. We will share it with other worlds again. The bridge between stars will reopen, safely this time." A low murmur spread among the Eloran leaders. Sarai's eyes widened. "You mean you will contact other species?" Elira nodded. "Yes, the same way our ancestors once did, with trust, not fear. The human sacrifice reminded us of who we were meant to be, protectors, not rulers." Kale spoke up, his voice steady. "Then we must name the new generation of guardians. The Spark Guard will keep the peace and protect the light." Elira looked at Sarai. "And you, my daughter, will lead them. It was your bond with the human that awakened the light. You carry his spirit as much as our own." Sarai froze. "Me, but I—" Her mother smiled. "You already lead, child. You led when you stood beside him. You led when you refused to abandon faith. Now the universe must see that unity through you." Sarai lowered her eyes, trying to steady her voice. "If I lead, I will lead in his name." Elira nodded. "Then so it shall be." That night, the entire citadel gathered for the ceremony. The great plaza glowed with golden firelight. Songs filled the air, songs of hope, love, and remembrance. Statues of shining crystal surrounded the hall, showing both Eilorans and humans standing side by side. Sarai stepped forward to the center platform, dressed in white robes lined with silver light. The pendant glowed bright against her chest. Elira raised her hands and spoke to the people. "Tonight we honor the one who came from beyond our skies, the human named Jake, who gave his life so that light may return to us. His courage reminded us that strength does not come from power, but from kindness, from faith, from love." Sarai looked up and smiled softly. "You see, Jake? You didn't vanish. You became part of the sky." As the celebration continued, she slipped away to the quiet balcony overlooking the sea. The night breeze brushed her face, and the waves below shimmered with golden light. She held the pendant in her hands and whispered, "We kept your promise. Your light saved us all." The pendant glowed brighter than ever before, and a soft, familiar warmth surrounded her. She closed her eyes and could almost hear his voice again. Calm, gentle, full of peace. "I'm still here, Sarai. I'll always be." Tears filled her eyes, but she smiled through them. "I know," she whispered, "and I'll make sure your story never fades." Far out over the horizon, a new dawn began. The light spread across the sea like golden fire, touching every corner of the world. Elora's people looked to the skies with hope, ready to begin a new era of unity. And somewhere within that golden glow, the spirit of a human watched quietly, a guardian of two worlds, whose love and courage had bridged the stars forever. The legend of Jake, the human who became light, would be told for generations, and every time the morning sun rose over Elora's shining sea, its warmth would whisper his story anew, proof that even across the endless stars, a single heart could change the fate of worlds.